मेरे साथ लखन मेहरोत्रा साहब जुड़ गए हैं। आप जो मेरे पुराने दर्शक हैं वो आपसे परिचित हैं। सर, कैन यू हियर मी? आप
हाँ हाँ, आपकी आवाज सुनाई पड़ रही है।
अच्छा, ठीक है। हाँ, एक तो सर आई एम सो सॉरी, वो मैं जूम से स्ट्रीम यार्ड पे असल में हम लोग माइग्रेट कर गए थे 3-4 महीना पहले, 5 महीना पहले। आपको मैंने बताया नहीं था तो उससे आपको तकलीफ हुई होगी। हाँ सर, मैं इसी डिस्कशन को रूस यूक्रेन युद्ध पे हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं। आपके सर्विसेज के कलीग भी आपके साथ हैं, डॉक्टर केतन शुक्ला, कमांडर अनिल जयसिंह साहब हैं डिफेंस वाले, वो अपना पर्सपेक्टिव बताएं। सर, एक बहुत हमारे दर्शकों को बहुत बेसिक चीज बता दीजिए सर, ये रीजन ऑफ वॉर क्या था? वॉज इट मिलिट्री? वॉज इट व्यापार, बिजनेस, आइडियोलॉजी? ये क्या था? व्हाई दे फॉट? व्हाई रशिया डिड दिस?
नहीं, देखिए, वो दैट इज वेरी क्लियर. द इन्वेजन केम बिकॉज Russia had made repeated requests to both NATO and Ukraine that Ukraine should not be brought under the umbrella of NATO, whereas Ukraine repeatedly kept asking NATO to make them a member. Now, there are very important factors in this for the state of Russia. The state of Russia itself has its origin in Ukraine. The Orthodox Church of Russia and the name of Rus itself comes through Ukraine. Yaroslav in the 7th century was a king who adopted the church, his church as Orthodox Church, and gave his kingdom the name Rus. Therefore, they treat Ukraine as their home country. Secondly, when they had been warning, enough warnings had been given to NATO that you please do not come beyond your line, the red line that we have already discussed with you and I have analyzed, and you know it very well. It does not include Ukraine. Therefore, the war came. That was the reason behind the war. That is very clear to the world also. Now, the question is whether Putin is right in attacking them. That is another very important question. Now, the sovereignty and territorial integrity of another country which has been accepted as independent by the rest of the world is sacrosanct. And you cannot violate it just like a home territory, saying that our security there is in danger. If your warnings had included that you will have to go to war with Ukraine, and Ukraine even then kept on its insistence for NATO, that is a different matter. I do not know whether Putin had included his warning to attack Ukraine while dealing with Ukraine on this subject. But they have been at it for a very long time, from well before the Russians occupied Crimea. And when the Russians occupied Crimea, which was a part of the sovereign territory of Ukraine, the rest of the world took it in its stride. There was not even a squeak from the Western world about Russian occupancy of Crimea, except making noises here and there, ineffectual noises, and that kept on. So therefore, it has encouraged Putin. Putin thought that this time also he can get away with it. But this time, what Putin had told the world was that his primary objective was to have the independence granted to Russian majority territories within Ukraine. And once he achieved it, he should not have gone further. This is a feeling that I personally have. And this is what has put Putin at odds with the rest of the world. This is what my my own conviction is. But I treat Russia as a very, very great and intimate friend of India, which has helped India through thick and thin, which has stood by India at the United Nations in the midst of opposition from all others. It has exercised veto power in regard to the vote against us on the subject of of our jurisdiction over J and K, and it has helped the entire subcontinent of India during the Bangladesh war, when Bangladesh wanted to separate from Pakistan, and the U.S. President Mr. Nixon at that time, my dear friend, Nixon at that time, you know what he did? He sent his nuclear armed enterprise into the Bay of Bengal, and then the Russians, under their treaty arrangement with us, sent their submarine with the nuclear arms to chase the enterprise. And it was at that time when Nixon realized that he had crossed the red line, as the Russians are saying today, that 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 they withdrew, and Bangladesh would get its independence. Now, now these are facts of history. They have stood by us, and therefore we cannot ignore our link with them. Even today, nearly 60% of our defense equipment is coming from Russia. How can we de-link ourselves from Russia? We don't cannot do. It is not possible for India. Secondly, we know that even Europe, look at Europe, they have continued with the supply of oil and gas, although in limited amounts from Russia, even after the sanctions have been imposed by America. Because the American sanctions are not multilateral sanctions, but bilateral sanctions. America, as an individual country, is announcing the sanctions. They are not the sanctions that have been adopted at the United Nations to be multilaterally passed and then applied worldwide. Therefore, it will affect, of course, it will impact on the bilateral relationships of America and Europe and the West with all the rest of the world. But it does not have the same sanctity as as a UN sponsored sanction. That is the other point that I want to make. But at this point of time, India stands in between. India stands in between quite rightly because its relationship with the USA has also gone up considerably from the time of Nixon. We have left those times behind. From the time of President Bush Jr. to India, these ties have only gone up and up and up, and today they are also our major strategic partner, and therefore we have to be very careful in the matter. One friend is standing on one side, the other friend is standing on one side, and we are in the middle. My submission is that just like Kosygin in 1965 December arranged a meeting at Tashkent of both the leaders of India, Shri Lal Bahadur Ji Shastri and President Ayub Khan, brought them to Tashkent and got them to agree on an agreement. I think that should be the outcome, Mr. Anand Vardhan, of your program. That we recommend to the government of India that they should work for bringing Zelensky and Putin together in New Delhi, just as Kosygin has brought President Ayub and Lal Bahadur Shastri in Tashkent. And there was an agreement, and that was the Tashkent Declaration. And both of them withdrew from their lines of occupation, and they passed a resolution to be long-term members, and that they would issue no propaganda against each other, and that arrangement worked for quite some time.
Yes.
until. So I think we should now move towards an agreement between Russia and Ukraine, and India should work very hard for it, as hard as it
Yes.
can.
ओके, मैं लखन मेहरोत्रा साहब आपके पास आ रहा हूं। मैं बहुत ब्रीफली, क्योंकि समय तो समाप्त हो गया और नेक्स्ट उस सेशन के स्पीकर्स आके मतलब ऑलरेडी दे आर वेटिंग, लेकिन आपको से ब्रीफली एक चीज समझ लें, आप आपके के एक्सपीरियंस एक चीज समझ लें। जो ये अभी एक पेट्रियोटिज्म वर्सेस नेशनलिज्म की बात हो रही है, तो मैं जरा आपसे समझ लूं, ये क्या म्यूचुअली एक्सक्लूसिव है? मैं अगर पेट्रियट हूं, अगर इफ आई एम अ पेट्रियट, तो क्या मैं नेशनलिस्ट हो सकता हूं? क्योंकि नेशनलिस्ट जो है उसके बारे में टेक्निकली ये कहा जाता है कि उसका एक दुश्मन होता है। पेट्रियट का दुश्मन जरूरी नहीं है, बट नेशनलिस्ट ऑलवेज क्रिएट अ एनिमी, ऑलवेज। और वो कुछ कहता है कि मैं सुपीरियर, मुझसे अच्छा कुछ नहीं, मैं सबसे अच्छा, मैं वो। तो आई एम जस्ट आस्किंग एज अ फिलॉसफी एंड वेरी ब्रीफली सर।
देखिए, मैं पेट्रियोटिज्म और
नेशनलिज्म।
नेशनलिज्म का जो सबसे सुंदर उदाहरण है कि उनसे क्या होता है, वो हिटलर की रिजीम है जर्मनी में। In my view, it is very good for everybody to be a patriot. But to be a nationalist, to build a nation to a point where it would be destructive of others, that is what Hitler did. And then the whole world came out and against him, and he had to suffer the destiny that was his due. So nationalism, by being just a nationalist, in the sense that your nation is supreme and you would do what you want abroad. If that is the sense of nationalism, then it is a very dangerous entity. But if nationalism is another phase of patriotism, to build your nation to its highest optimum level of development, that is good nationalism. To develop its military power that can defend itself against any offensive power or offensive attack against you, that is good nationalism. But to pose a threat through that nationalism to all others in the neighborhood or outside or anywhere in the world, I don't endorse that concept of nationalism. If I have answered that question that you have put, I think
Yes,
I should
very,
stop
very
here.
well, very well said, sir. Very well said. Thank you so much.